This video is going to be a test of character. Not like a test of your character, but rather a character that you've written. So, yes, I guess technically it's a test of character. Characters are the lifeblood of your story, in that they are alive and full of blood until chapter 7. Getting your story right often means getting your characters right, and today we're talking about 5 signs that you haven't done that. Speaking of things you potentially haven't done but probably should do, subscribing to my channel so you'll get more videos like this. All right, sign number 1, you've written a terrible character. They are consistently liked or disliked by other characters. Any character who is interesting and dynamic is going to be polarizing on some level. Even your square-jawed, charismatic, thoughtful, leader-type character is going to rub some folks the wrong way. You could be the nicest person in the world, but there's probably at least one person who you've managed to piss off throughout the course of your life. I'm talking to you, Darren. If everyone likes your character or everyone thinks that they are the best at what they do, then it's a sign that the character itself and the rest of your cast is weak. A lot of the depth of your character will be created by the reactions and interactions between them and the rest of your cast. And if the other characters don't have diverse opinions about a character, then that's a problem. And I'm not just talking about the people who are on opposing sides of your character. I mean people who are on the same side as your character. Characters who are as likable to the reader as this character is. They might have differing opinions about how best to tackle the story's conflict. They might have met the character when the character was going through a bad time. They might have been given false information about the character. Hell, they might not just jive with them for whatever reason. If the entire world feels exactly the same way about a character, that's going to make that entire world feel flat. It won't feel like it's populated by a diverse mix of different characters. You also run the risk of running into Mary/Gary, Sue/Stu territory because it will make the rest of the world seem like it's centered around that character. It's like my mother told me on the first day of kindergarten. Some people in the world won't like you, and that's okay. Actually, no, she said most people in the world probably aren't going to like you. Sign number 2 that you've written a terrible character, their downfall is not due to their own flaws. Or if your character doesn't have a downfall, then at least the main conflict that they face should somehow be exacerbated by their flaws. This is not so much a problem with the character itself, but rather a lack of fit between the character and the story you've put them into. They're not necessarily a terrible character, but they're a terrible character for this story. Your villain's giant space laser not working because their hubris prevented them from installing the proper circuit breakers is a much more emotionally engaging arc than the space laser not working because it happened to be cloudy that day. The reason that a character struggles or fails entirely should at least in part be caused by internal factors. Flaws, beliefs, egos, hatred of wiring, whatever. Characters come into their element when they are challenged, when they are faced with obstacles that amplify rather than circumvent their own shortcomings. A lot of tragedies are centered around this idea that if you replace the tragic character with someone else, then the story stops becoming a tragedy. If you take Hamlet out of Hamlet, then the story no longer becomes Hamlet, and not just because you've taken out Hamlet, but because another character is not going to have Hamlet's flaws, and so the course of Hamlet will go a different way because Hamlet is no longer Hamlet. It's not that the circumstances themselves could not be overcome, it's that the specific character couldn't overcome them. That will hurt way more than it just being due to random chance or other external factors. The story you fit a character into needs to match the character themselves. Sign number 3 that you've written a terrible character, they are not a product of the system that created them. Where you are right now and everything about your life is the right side of the equation that adds every decision, circumstance, random occurrence, and 1 in a million lightning strike that has happened since you emerged from an egg and crawled into the ocean. Most of my audience is actually sea turtles. Your entire life is a long, unbroken causal chain where your current state is affected by every single prior event in your life. And the major contributing thing to those events is the system that you grew up in. Your character needs to be shaped by the system that they grew up in. Their beliefs, their opinions, how they see the world, their knowledge, their sense of right and wrong, all needs to make sense in that context. If they grew up in a totalitarian state being fed propaganda every day, morning through night, then they're going to have a different set of beliefs, a different worldview than someone who was raised in a liberal democratic country. If your character has spent every single day of their life harvesting turnips, yet they somehow know how to do differential calculus, then that's something that you need to explain, and if you can't explain it, then that's a big flaw in the character. Making sure that your characters are products of the system that created them gives you a beautiful opportunity to shape that character and contrast them with other characters who perhaps came from a different system or with the systems that your readers were raised in. Sign number 4 that you've written a terrible character: they are not cranked to 11. I get a little, not annoyed, but perturbed when people talk about realistic characters and liking realistic characters, that sort of thing. Fiction is not about capturing reality, but rather dramatizing selected elements of it. I've mentioned before that capturing the entire complexity of an actual human being within a character is nigh on impossible. The best you can hope to do is write a few interesting elements. And to be effective, those elements that you do capture often need to be amped up to some degree. Your spy character can be a bit more competent than a real person could be. Your fantasy hero can probably take more sword blows than would be expected, and your erotica protagonist can have more energy for certain activities than a real person could. You're likely going to have several crucial elements to your character, and you want those elements amplified as much as possible, both to emphasize them and also to make sure that the reader understands those things about the character. It's very hard to get subtle details across to the reader, so you often need to be a little bit more explicit than you might expect. As Hitchcock so famously said, drama is life with the dull bits cut out, and this applies to your characters as well. And lastly, sign number 5 that you've written a bad character: they don't think of themselves as the hero. If you study the most evil, villainous, genocidal, maniacal people who have ever existed throughout time, you'll often discover some reasons why they felt justified in their beliefs. This doesn't excuse what they've done, but it does explain the thought process that led them to those things. Very few people consider themselves evil. Most people feel that their actions are good and justified, even if those actions involve hurting other people. Everyone is the hero of their own story. They are working to shape the world to fit their view. Even the most violent, despicable villain out there probably thinks that what they're doing will make the world a better place, even if their idea of better place is quite atrocious and disturbing. Your character needs to possess the underlying logic and reasoning to explain their actions. Your villain needs to pursue their aims with the same moralistic determination as the hero does. Their view of the high road and low road may be objectively opposed to the geometric reality, but they should still believe that they're correct. The reader, the narrator, and the other characters may view their actions in a different way, but the character should feel in the right. You'll hear this cited as the reason why a lot of villains don't work, but I think you can run into the same problems with a hero. Heroes just pursuing generic hero-like things for generic hero-like reasons work as poorly as villains pursuing generic villainy things for generic villainy reasons. You have to think strongly about the motivations that your character has and what that leads them to pursue. Just like I'm glad I led you to pursue watching this video. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video and found the advice in it useful. If you want to see more stuff like this, you can check out all my other writing advice related videos and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.